The June 28, 2016 meeting of the Methacton School District Board of School Directors is now called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready?
Yep.
I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. You're up.
Good evening. My name is Emerson Gormley. It is an honor to be here tonight to tell you about my school, Arrowhead Elementary. Arrowhead is such a special school. The staff is awesome. They encourage us to do our best and have confidence in ourselves. I like that the teachers each have special ways to make learning fun and always make sure that their students understand what they have learned. One of my favorite things in Arrowhead is the Watchdogs program. I like that the Watchdogs get to interact with us in the classroom, at lunch, and even at recess. The students always look forward to getting and giving high fives. Our principal, Mr. Roberts, well, he'll do just about anything to put a smile on our faces, even if it means to take a pie in the face at the spring fair. I like that he talks to all the students to get to know us and our families. The most important thing that I have learned at Arrowhead is to be safe, respectful, and responsible. Thank you.
Great job.
All righty. Well, Emerson and Adam, these certificates are going to make you junior school board directors. Now, are you ready to take on all the responsibilities that come with this important job? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. All right. There you go. Congratulations.
Typically, we would dismiss the students in order to get home and do homework, but this evening...
Swimming.
Okay, that's good. Have a great evening. Have a great summer. Look forward to seeing you in September.
All right, continue right along. Next item on the agenda will be announcements and executive sessions. The public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for purposes of rebroadcast. Please be advised there was an executive session of the board held on 6/27/2016 for matters of contract negotiations with our labor unions. There was an executive session of the board held prior to this meeting for personnel matters of an administrative employee. Now, moving on, in terms of attendance, we have everybody present except for Mr. Phillips, and Mr. Phillips is joining us remotely on the phone. And we appreciate you calling in for the meeting, Jim. Then we'll move right on to recognition of guests and scheduled speakers. Dr. Zerbe.
There are no recognition of guests and scheduled speakers this evening. I recommend we move right to number 6, reports.
Thank you. We'll start off with the Finance Committee. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. President. The regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Committee took place on June 15th and was called to order at 6:31 p.m. All members of the committee were in attendance, as were Mr. Whiteleather and Dr. Zerbe. There were 5 items on the agenda for that evening, and the first was an update on the 2016-2017 budget. Items to note that were changes from May were expenditure reductions in the amount of $235,000, resulting from the following: an additional professional retirement, custodial replacement, special ed position movement, and our insurance renewals coming in lower than expected. An addition of $58,000 was added to the budget to reflect the enrollment and capacity fee and high school scheduling consultants. In terms of revenue, the budget was reduced by $177,000, resulting from reductions in the PSERS FICA reimbursement as a result of the aforementioned position movements, and a reduction of the PSERS tax exception. Those that attended the work session last week will note that the budget has changed since the Finance Committee meeting, and in fact, the budget tonight reflects slight changes since that work session. Mr. Whiteleather will review the final budget during his report. There were various discussions involving the budget, including topics of additional expenditure reductions, plan con money, whether or not to include additional revenue from the Shenandoah properties, etc. The next item on the agenda was the 2016-2017 Homestead-Farmstead Resolution. This resolution is brought in front of the board each year. The resolution results in a reduction of real estate taxes on the aggregate amount available from gambling funds and the Philadelphia tax reimbursement across the total number of homestead and farmstead properties in the district. Mr. Whiteleather will have more about this item during his report this evening, but the Finance Committee did review and has brought to the full board this evening for approval. The third item on the agenda was a review of the district insurance renewals. Mr. Whiteleather reviewed the 8 various coverages the district has and the resulting change in premium versus last year. 6 of the 8 lines of business resulted in a savings as compared to last year in the amount of roughly $60,000. Please note that in terms of the budget for next year, you will see in the presentation an expenditure reduction in the amount of $100,000 versus the $60,000 that I just mentioned. The difference here is that it was originally expected that our premiums would increase as opposed to decrease from last year. So the net savings budget-wise is in fact the $100,000. That item is for full board and approval this evening. The last 2 items on the agenda for the evening were the monthly financial reports and the potential need for short-term financing in the 2016-2017 fiscal year if the state budget is not approved. In terms of the list of bills, several checks to vendors were questioned and answered. There was discussion around the Treasury report and the capital accounts. It was noted that the last draw from the Emmaus Bond Fund was taken and thus resulted in 2 checks being written from the capital account. The committee also asked for an updated projection for the current fiscal year. In terms of short-term financing, Mr. Whiteleather indicated that short-term financing is available should we need it. We would need at a minimum 6 weeks from the time we need the money, although it was highly recommended that should we see the need for short-term financing, that we get the paperwork going well in advance of the 6-week minimum. It was also noted that rates are currently in the 1.5% to 2% range. Courtesy of the floor was held, and 3 members of the public had questions and comments regarding the budget and tax revenue from the Shenandoah properties, school district fund balances, and possible legislative actions regarding such, and property taxation and property values. The meeting adjourned at 8:21. Thank you.
Thank you. And now moving on to the Property Committee. Scott.
Thank you. The Property Committee met on June 13th. All members were present. In addition, Dr. Zerbe was present, Mr. Fretz was present, Mr. Whiteleather was absent. The meeting was called to order at 6:04 p.m. 4 topics on the discussion docket: the facility assessment planning update. The committee discussed the draft that AEM provided to the district on all of our facilities. It was agreed to at the meeting that we would have a follow-up session to further categorize and review the plan and then prioritize the the planning process and the funding of the potential requirements that have arisen from the study. So we'll be meeting in July with AEM, Dr. Zerbe, and Mr. Fretz to consider some of the recommendations. The second item was the PEMA-FEMA application update. At the last board meeting, we advised the public that we were going to file to get some of our money that we had to spend as a result of the storm back We've settled with our insurance carrier, and the work is underway, and then we will submit those expenses to FEMA for further reimbursement. The one catch was that FEMA was looking for us to file that paperwork by the end of June, and we will require an extension because the work will not be performed in time to meet the June deadline. The next item on the docket was elementary school entrance progress. As the public may recall, we did vote to approve some expenditures to improve primarily the video monitoring and entrance capability at a couple of our elementary schools. We did approve the funding. The equipment's been ordered. The intention is to have that work completed prior to the school year started. In addition to the physical work being done, the principals working with Mr. Sesnovic and Dr. Zerbe will be revising their processes to include the new equipment and assure that we've got not only the processes but the equipment to make sure that the entrance capability of our elementary schools is up to speed. In addition, Dr. Zerbe is going to be reviewing the current policy and the baseline for safety and security and make sure that our policies are consistent with our practices. The last item on the agenda was a field project process update or progress update. We heard from our owner's rep, Fidavia, on some of the closeout items that still remained. There's issues primarily with soil and grass in multiple areas across the project. In addition, there's some retention basin issues that still have to be worked out due to some subsoil issues. The contractor was scheduled to meet with Fidavia and Dr. Zerbe and Mr. Fretz after our meeting, so we'll get an update in July on the progress. It should be noted that the contractor is really saying, pretty much he was done with most of the work and wanted his payment, and obviously the school district and Dr. Zerbe and Mr. Fretz did not agree and don't agree to that, so there could be some contention in the future over that, but we want to hold the contractor to the requirements of the contract. We then had courtesy of the floor. We had one question, and it was regarding the AEM study and whether that study could be posted for public review. At this time, we're not ready to post the study because it is a draft review, and we're in the review process amongst the committee. After the committee is done reviewing it, we'll bring it to the full board with our recommendations, and at that time, the study will be released. And we concluded the meeting at 7:06 p.m.
Thanks, Scott. Moving right along, Andrea and the Education Committee.
The Education Committee met on June 6th. Everyone was present on the committee, including Dr. Zerbe, Dr. Katona, and Dr. Engstad. There was also 4 points for discussion. The first was a charter school update provided by Dr. Engstad. Charter schools cost the district $1.3 million, so this is obviously a important topic to discuss, and there is an information evening planned for parents in July for those students who attend charter schools so they can be aware of all the options. And for those who are, there's brick and mortar charter schools, but also cyber charter schools. The next topic was a gifted screening update, and since Dr. Engstad is here, I'd like to thank her for all her hard work. As a former gifted support teacher, this is a wonderful change for the district. They are now going to be providing universal screening for all second grade students. Information will come home about that. In addition to universally screening the children, there is a new screener going to be used, and I think this is an excellent addition to the district, and I appreciate Dr. Engstad's work behind this and all the work that it'll take for the teachers in the future. The third item was Dr. Katona giving all the key action items for 2016-2017. I could probably sit here and talk about this for an hour, but don't worry, I won't. The main highlights are, of course, our new math curriculum for K-4, Math in Focus, the second-year implementation of the 5-6 My Math Glencoe, continuing monitoring the K-4 reading ELA, moving from more skill-based, and the continued work on literacy across content areas. I don't want to but I don't want to go into all the nitty-gritty of all the education. It is in the minutes, and it's all very important, but I could go on and on, like I said. Another very important aspect will be the one-to-one Chromebook pilots for grades 10 and 11, and the additional pilot of the Chromebooks for 7th grade. And the continuing of adding and investigating more ways to implement STEM initiatives. The fourth main topic was some technology, education and family consumer science curriculum revisions that we will be voting on this evening. And there was no comments or questions for courtesy of the floor.
Thank you. And moving on, policy, Kim?
I don't have a report this evening. Our meeting was continued. We're continuing it on July 7th, I believe.
All right. The IU and Brenda?
Thank you. The IU met on June 22nd, last Wednesday night. It's so seldom that we have a meeting prior to our meeting because it's the fourth Wednesday of the month. So one of the reports that was given was by Tina Valletto, who is the conduit for community and government relations, and of course we're all very interested in the 2016-17 budget. One of the things that she said was that we expect that the budget will not be a long drawn-out affair as it was last year, not promising having it ready by June 30th, and that in the governor's version there was $250 million additional for basic education funding, which would be distributed to districts in the same way that the additional money was this year. Of course, that was the governor's version. The legislature has come forth with a version that includes $200 million in basic education funding. So stay tuned. There may be some more money from the state. There were several items that were approved on the budget, mainly contracts with a variety of school districts. One of the items that was on there, which was also a bit of good news, was an IDEA grant that relates to the Agora Cyber Charter School, which moved from Chester County to Montgomery County, and therefore it comes under the MCIU. This grant that is being transferred is significant. It's $23 million, and a significant portion of that will be distributed among the schools, the school districts in Montgomery County. We don't know any details on it yet, but it should be good news for us. And the other thing is, something that I was concerned about was we were closing a Head Start in Green Lane, and the IU staff has reached out to all of the participants in that. They are not going to be able to replace that Head Start. They had 18 students, and they've made sure that everybody has been communicated with so that they know what they're doing with their children for the coming year. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the Tech Center, Andrea, Herb, who you want? Okay.
Back on June 20th, the JOC did have a meeting over at the Tech Center. Very short meeting. We were in and out under an hour. A couple good things that we talked about. The Tech Center did receive a $45,000 grant, supplemental equipment grant from the state. It's something that's pretty unique that they applied for it and did receive. So we'll be going towards getting new equipment, shop equipment, whatever they need for that type of application. The mechatronics program was granted the Program of the Year from the state also as well for the Tech Center, which was quite an achievement. The roofing project, just a quick update on that, it's we're about 3 weeks into it now, so it's probably over 40% complete, which is on target. Attention is being applied, especially to the installation of the roof, so they can get that 30-year warranty that they're achieving. So the good news is the building's in good shape. There's very little deterioration of the under roof of the old roof once they took it off. And they are also getting in the process of getting a new phone system for the Tech Center that's in their current budget. The one that they have now is over 20 years old. And the new phone system is actually going to be pretty interesting. It's using open source technology so that they're able to upgrade and change the software packages that actually run the system as needed, or add modules to it based on open source. So it's a very, very good idea. I wish I had thought of it when I was upgrading my system. And last but not least, Dr. Rogers, this was his last meeting of superintendent of record, and a new superintendent will be coming in. Okay, that's my report. Thank you.
All right, moving on to communications. Ms. Lynch.
I would just invite everyone to go to the website and see over 300 pictures that were taken at graduation. It was a fantastic day on the new fields, and I would just invite everyone to appreciate the hard work that the district does to bring graduates into this community. It was a fine, fine day. I would also invite everyone to register for the Education Foundation Golf Outing on August 22nd. We will be holding it at the club at Shenandoah, and it should be a great opportunity to continue to fund the EFMC, which helps to fund Methacton schools. That's it.
Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Zerbe for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to pay recognition to the Pac-10, 2015-16 Pac-10 Spring All-Conference teams and awardees as attached to the agenda. I also want to thank all of my staff for a tremendous school year. I'm proud of their collective work that we've accomplished. My staff truly is committed to our students. I also want to thank our students, our parents, and our community for their support and cooperation with many of the activities throughout the 2015-16 school term. And lastly, I want to thank this board for their continued support and focus on making the Methacton School District one of the top performing districts in the Commonwealth. We had a tremendous school year, and now we look forward to the 2016-2017 school year. And with that, I'd like to also mention about our strategic planning efforts. I would like to bring the board's attention to that my administrative team and I have begun work described within the strategic plan. Our work is centered on the review of the plan and the organization of tasks, timelines, and deliverables contained within the document. As you may recall, we adopted this plan with the understanding that it needs to be a flexible document, one that allows us as a district to remain on a path towards improvement in each of the focus areas while being able to add, remove, change matters appropriately. As such, I want the board to know that we have started this work, and as you make progress along the way with things such as forming committees on these objectives, I will also keep the board and the greater community apprised of our progress. And lastly, I would just like to thank Mr. Whiteleather, our Chief Financial Officer, for his service to the Methacton School District. I know that this evening will be his last board meeting, if the budget's passed. And, and I wish him much success in his future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Whiteleather. Thank you. That ends my report.
Thank you, and Stuart, good luck with the new job, and, you know, enjoy that, was it 15-minute commute to the new, 5 minutes, sorry. I was exaggerating. All right, so let's move on to the next one, which would be the public comment on board action items. Before we go into public comment, just related to stepping up to the podium, our policy is that each person has about 3 minutes, and throughout the year, we have not really stuck to that. We're trying to give people a little leniency as we only have a few speakers. If we get a large group, we'll dial it into that. But please be respectful of that when I say, please finish up, I'm giving you an extra minute or two, so if you can be respectful of that request and finish up. We aren't sticking to the letter of our policy while we have a smaller group of speakers, but please be respectful of it when we ask you to finish up, okay? So moving right along, right on to the public comment. John behind you. Yeah, go. You're up.
Good evening. John Andrews, Lower Providence. This evening, my subject is the budget that needs to be passed by the end of this month. And last evening, I sent out to the Board and Administration a short memo relative to high school teaching positions. And I did that because the latest budget that was posted Saturday evening said that due to a substantial decline in course enrollments, there would be a cut of one English teaching position. Well, our students, to meet the graduation requirements, have a number of subjects: English, math, physical science, social studies, etc. And those subjects that I listed, each of them has about 18 or 19 teachers in the new budget. So that includes English and the others. So enrollment is down by 9.4% from the 2011-2012 year, from 1757 to 1591. Yet during that time, the teaching staff has been essentially flat at 130. Not sure of the exact count, but this fall there will be either 130 or 131 or 132, according to the available information. Dr. Quinn at one time said that he'd maintain a constant student-teacher ratio. Well, it's gone up over 9%, or gone down over 9%, and that's not holding it flat, and it's the taxpayers that are making up the difference. So I think that cutting one teaching position in one of those 5 subject areas begs the question. I think they all should get the cut so that there would be a total of 5 positions cut, and that would help reduce the expenses in the budget and reduce the taxes, and the time for the board to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Joe Bickelman from Audubon. This has to do with the bills list. I understand there's a check on the bills list for $7,500 to Public Financial Management, and it was said at the last board meeting that it's to develop a budgeting module or a model, a budgeting model. And I think that the office of the business manager, we should hire a replacement for Mr. Whiteleather, somebody that knows how to put a budget model together. I would hope that we don't get somebody that doesn't know how to do that we have to contract it out and pay $7,500. The Office of Business Manager has lost the responsibility of 60 food service people when they got outsourced. They lost 120 bus drivers when we outsourced transportation. So I think budgeting is probably one of the major components of the office, and the person that we hire should have the knowledge to put together a proper budgeting model. I think too, we outsource scheduling, the review of the scheduling package. We outsource enrollment projections. I think, we pay a lot of administrators here decent salaries where they should have the capability of doing these functions. And I don't think we should be paying all this money to outside sources when these people should do these tasks, our administrators here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Candy Alaba, Eagleville. I missed last week. I wanted to say something, but I was a little off kilter. I know tonight you're going to approve some matters that have to do with curriculum, which has to be recertified, if I understand. But a comment was made last week about we've never had a director of curriculum before Dr. Katona came. As someone who's been in this room for 10 years, yes, we did. We had Dr. Kirk, who was also in charge of curriculum, because I had to come to him about buying a large number of New English books for the 7th grade at the time. We had Dr. Martin, who was assistant superintendent and also handled curriculum and gave the curriculum reports every month, and who also put the ever-popular Harry Potter course in place that no one ever signed up for, and we don't know what happened to the books. And then we had Diane Barry. When Dr. Martin chose to retire, Diane Barry was made director of curriculum. We didn't bring back in an assistant superintendent. We brought her in. We made Mr. Harney, no offense, assistant to the superintendent for human resources, and he got a $14,000 raise. What Diane Barry did when she had that position, I have no idea. I know from the time Diane Barry left until Dr. Katona came, it was never announced who was in charge of the curriculum. So I think at that point, everything fell apart because no one picked up the slack. But to say we never had one in charge of curriculum is a little disingenuous, and the public should know that. We did have very qualified people. Dr. Kurt was very highly respected. He retired, and they wound up bringing him back for a couple more years to fill the position.
Ms. Allenbach, if you recall this conversation, I was the one that made the response to that. And while you may have heard that I said there was never a curriculum director, the message I was trying to convey was that there was an absence or a void in that position for a long period of time, which you recognized.
Yes.
That was the message, so I wasn't trying to mislead the public or you about never having a curriculum director. Most districts have them.
Yes.
Okay?
And it was always
and
my
should have them.
understanding, usually the assistant superintendent.
Yep, understood.
Trying to
I just
handle
want to make sure that, you're bringing the matter up. I want to make sure that everyone knows that I said what I said, but it wasn't that we didn't have curriculum directors. There was a void in the process, and that's why we were coming at this time.
Well, that's
with
why
the
I
curriculum.
wanted to bring it up to see if we could straighten out, to see if I misunderstood. And I know before Dr. Katona came, there was a void, and it was for a while. And I'm sure in the school year, you have to have someone in place to keep an eye on the curriculum. And Dr. Katona, from what I see, has worked very hard since she's come here, and we appreciate it that she stays on top of it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Good. All right. All right, let's go to the first action item, which is approve the board meeting minutes from the board work session held on May 17th and the board meeting held on May 24th. May I have a motion to approve? Second? Any comment, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Any opposed? All right, passes 9-0. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could ask that the board be so kind to allow us to go to items 10 first, because some of the items in 10 are related to the approval of the budget, which is located in section 9 of the agenda. So my recommendation is that we move to section 10, allow Mr. Harney to present those items, take a vote on those items, and then come back to section 9. Thank you.
I agree with that, other than we no longer call him Mr. Harney.
That's accurate. That's
Congratulations.
Dr. Harney.
Dr. Harney, as of this past week, right? That's fantastic. You should-
Our first item of professional staff, we have an agenda item this evening to discuss. I believe, Dr. Zerbe, you wanted to...
Yes, on the agenda, we have under professional staff, which is certainly a new heading. We don't typically have this heading, but we want you to know that we are asking for you to approve my recommendation based on the substantial decline in course enrollment for the curtailment and alteration of programs, specifically for the elimination of one secondary English teaching position at Methacton High School. Now, and so that you understand the process, if you approve this item this evening, we will then, by law, be required to notify the least senior English teacher at Methacton High School, and then we will come back to you in July with the name of that individual for a recommendation of non-renewal of a temporary contract. So it's a legal process, and this is a result of the work that our high school has done so far with scheduling for the next school year, and it's brought us to this matter. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, or Mr. Harney will be glad to answer them as well.
All right, we have two resignations professional for your approval this evening. We have one resignation classified. We have two employment administrative. We're asking for the approval and appointment of Deborah Euchre for our Woodland Elementary School, and asking for your approval for Amy Mangano, principal of Arcola Intermediate School. We have one employment professional this evening. We have 4 employment temporary summer help this evening. We have 4 change of status professional this evening. We have 2 change of status classified, 2 uncompensated leave professional, uncompensated leave classified. We have 2 of those this evening. We have some supplemental contracts for your approval, the extended season pay in the amount of $9,815.47, which is listed. We have another supplemental contract for Andrew Bugash. We also have extended school year staff, as well as the pre-kinder jumpstart staff for your approval this evening. And we have the list of volunteers. And 7 advisements.
Okay, thank you.
I usually have that there.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. May I have a motion to approve all the personnel items?
I'd like to request that we take D separately.
That's fine. Okay. So may I have a motion to approve all personnel items excluding D? Second. Any comments from the board? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. All right. May I have a motion to approve personnel item D? Second. All right. Any discussion?
This is something I had brought up previously, but my concern with this is not about the people that we are recommending for employment here. My concern was regarding the process that we followed to get to this. Going forward, I understand that it's difficult with a group of people like this to involve the board with as many decisions as we would all like to be involved in. However, I would hope that for an employment level of this position, a position of this level, when we're looking at hiring of a principal, I'd like the board to be better informed of the process as we go through it. We found out who the people were who were filling the positions as the public found out. I just kind of wish that we had been better apprised of the process as we were moving through it. And that's it. I'd like the process to be a little bit more open to the board going forward.
Okay, any other discussion points or comments? All right, Kim, thanks for sharing your thoughts. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes 9-0.
And if I would, allow me to introduce Deborah Euchre, principal of Woodland Elementary School. And Amy Mangano from New Hope, PA, principal of Arcola Intermediate School. Yes, please. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you both for coming this evening. We appreciate your time. If you want to stay for the remainder of the meeting, you're welcome to do that. If you'd like to exit, you can also do that as well. And we look forward to having you as part of my administrative team. But more importantly, we appreciate having you as part of our Methacton family. So welcome. We move on to Area 9, Section 9.
All right, under action item 9, we have the fiscal items, and for the last time, presenting it, Stuart.
Thank you. Several items on for your consideration this evening. The monthly list of bills is on for your approval, as well as our treasurer's report. Perhaps the big item of this evening is the final adoption of our budget for the 2016-17 year. I'll have a short review of the updated PowerPoint here momentarily, just going through the remaining items, and then we can touch base back on what changes have occurred for the budget since our meeting last week at the board workshop session. Our taxes applicable beyond real estate are listed for your approval as well. Our list of depositories or banks we do business with on for your approval this evening. The insurance carriers, as Mr. Ryan had spoken about earlier this evening, with their reflected rates and associated increase or decrease reflected. And finally, on for your consideration is our homestead farmstead resolution, which again Mr. Ryan spoke about as part of his meeting minutes for the Finance Committee meeting. Going back to the budget, each board member should have a PowerPoint in front of them. I'll be spending the next 2 to 3 hours going over this budget presentation with you. Just kidding. Just spend a few moments to go over this.
So you're moving on to improv, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I'll be a starving artist. Just to highlight on the expenditure side of the budget, again, same format that you have seen on numerous occasions. However, if you look down towards the bottom on the expenditure side, you can see that we had, since our meeting on June 15th, we had an additional reduction to the tune of $99,000 through professional staff resignations. Those positions are replaced with lower costing individuals, as well as the furlough, which you just approved this evening. The updated proposed final expenditures are at $104,544,052. If you flip the page on the revenue side, again, same setup as you're familiar with. The corresponding revenue reductions to offset the reductions in expenditures are a reduction in the use of our PSERS exception, So what that does is reduces our proposed tax increase, and offsetting again, as well as reduction in salaries, is a reduction in PSERS and FICA reimbursement from the state of Pennsylvania. Again, revenues, as you see here, are the same as expenditures at $104,544,052. On the final page, just a high-level summary. What I did, again, is just update the information as it pertains to this evening. Obviously, the very top is just a summary of our revenues and expenditures. Just below that, you can see what the proposed millage rate at 28.74 mils. Just for your reference, this was at 28.83 mils during our proposed final adoption last month. If we were to look at the average home assessed in the Methacton School District, the corresponding tax increases associated with Act 1 at the 2.4% remains unchanged from prior. The PSERS exception has been reduced, as explained on the prior page, to 0.6%, or $30.73 per average homeowner. You can see this was $47.72 at our proposed final. So in totality, our total real estate tax increase as proposed is at 3% even, or $151.84 per average homeowner. This is a $16.99 decrease from the proposed final budget as presented in May. And then finally, down at the bottom is just a quick calculation of how your tax bill is figured based upon the increase in millage that is reflected in this budget document at 0.84 mils. And just giving you a couple of different illustrations of a home assessed at between $200,000 all the way up to $1 million, and what this tax increase would mean for those homeowners. And that concludes the presentation for the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move into the action items, does anybody have specific questions about the details in the budget presentation? Okay.
Could we just work on all the rest of them and leave the budget as a separate item so that we can talk about that separately?
That's fine, yeah. Well, we can knock out all the other ones.
I'd like to pull out the first one, A, please, because I must abstain from voting on that one.
Okay. Well, let's start working on these. May I have a motion to approve the list of bills only as presented? Second. Any comment? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any against? One abstain, right? Right, so
it's 8-0 with one abstention.
yeah, 8-0 with one abstention. Okay, moving on to item number 9B, the Treasurer's Report. May I have a motion to approve the the Treasurer's Report as presented? Second. Any comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay, that passes by 9-0. We'll skip over the final budget adoption C and move on to the taxes. Or hold on.
D, E, and F.
Yeah, let's.
G is associated with the budget, so do.
All right. May I have a motion to approve D, which is the taxes for 2016, E, the deposits, and F, the insurance carriers and premiums? Second? Okay. Any discussion by the board? Okay.
Let me know when I get home.
All right, Jim, 1 second. Anybody present have a comment? Okay. Jim, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. On 9B, why is there a difference between Lower Providence and assessor. I see the per capita is double, and also the amusement tax is double of what North Pond is. There's a simple explanation.
Jim, it's Stuart. That is the historical amount that the district and municipality have levied or not levied. This amount reflected in the taxes for 16-17 is a reflection of things that well predate me. I certainly can research for you if required, give you some historical reference, but in terms of the value of dollars associated with these, the municipality and the school district can share or not share in these values of taxes that are collected. To the extent that the Worcester Township would not take part of these taxes under Act 511 and 679 is something that I'd have to research further, but in terms of that particular item, that's the reason for the differential between the two municipalities.
I guess the simple term, the Worcester North Pond has set that right in that district.
So, Jim, if I can repeat what you said, you're asking, does the townships set that, not the school district? Was that your question?
That's correct.
Okay.
The townships have their own taxing authority under each one of these provisions to levy their own amount of taxation based upon the limits that are prescribed within the law. They chose to levy some amount or no amount at all based upon this. And it's not any direction or decision or authorization from the school district to share or not share. It's the municipality who authorizes a levy of amount within the prescribed law. In this case, they chose not to do so to the equal level of Lower Providence Township.
Okay, so we're just collecting this for the townships?
No, this is the amount of money that the school district gets, levies, and recoups based upon a resident living within each of the municipalities. So once these tax amounts are collected, this is Methacton School District money.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are you good on that, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I forgot where we're at. Thank you. So may I have a motion to pass items, you're right. All those in favor of passing DE enough? Anyone against? Okay, that passes by 9. Jim, your vote?
That's B and below?
Yeah, DE enough.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So do we want to go back to those?
Yeah, the one you see first, and then we'll do G, we'll move it together.
I think, let's keep them separate. So we have C, right?
C.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the general fund budget for 2016 fiscal year? Second. Any discussion?
So, this won't be anything new, but I do have a concern and continue to have a concern that the board is not recognizing all the revenue that it expects to be receiving in the next budget year, 16-17. In particular, I'm concerned that we're not either recognizing all or a portion of the 2 new buildings that are coming online with Shannondale. one expected to be online in the July timeframe, one expected in the September timeframe. While I understand they don't show on the county list, and past history has been not to acknowledge things that aren't on the county list, I think this is a sizable enough piece of revenue that the board should recognize additional revenues that we're just not doing in this particular budget. Whether the board would elect to recognize a portion of, prorate it, and then de-risked, based on some time frame, 50% of the year, whatever. But to recognize zero, I think, is misleading the public in the revenue line. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Brenda, you want to?
Yes, actually, on that same subject, I pulled from the county records 2 properties that are at Shenandoah. One that is substantially identical to the one property that is going to come online in September. And the school district taxes for that building are $249,521. The other building, which is expected to open the week of July the 18th, is twice the size of the comparable building that is doing the same work. And that building is taxed at, for school district purposes, $220,351. So if you multiply that by 2, since it's twice as big and it's much more modern, not counting modern, just counting the size, that's $440,700 in school district taxes. Together, those amounts, what I did was a calculation that said 11/12ths of the year for the bigger one results in an expected interim tax, if you will, of $400,000. And on the second property, for 3/4 of a year, which is a little on the generous side, would be $210,000, for a sum total of $610,000 in taxes on just these 2 items. There are a couple of other items where we may have also additional revenue. As we talked about with the state budget, there may be some more money. With the intermediate unit, there may be some more money. I think that we are grossly underestimating what our revenues are, independent of the taxes that we need to collect from our citizens for real estate purposes. And I would ignore the other things, but I would consider offering an amendment to reduce the amount of real estate taxes by $610,000.
2 things. One, just because it is part of the budget, and I maybe should have addressed it during personnel, is I don't think this board takes lightly that a furlough is going to happen as part of the budget process, so I did want to acknowledge that. I've been giving this, the Shenandoah question a lot of thought since our work session meeting, and I like to put things in ways I can understand, and one of them is historically we have not put these types of properties as part of our budget because the county doesn't yet. So I was running that through my head. At my home, at my family, we're selling a second property that we have. And the people that are buying this property wanted the settlement to be in January, which, as most of you know, is unusual. It's usually 60 to 90 days. And I said, okay, well, why is that a problem? Because we said no to that. And it was explained to me that this property is something could happen between now and January. And that's why you don't have a settlement that long. And then we're out, we haven't sold our property. And I related that to this, because although, of course, Shenandoah wants people to live there, for them to be sold, however that works, it has not been done yet. So I understand the argument that we think this money is coming, but you never know what could happen. So, and that's how the property in my own family budget was explained. And it helped me understand the decision we're making now. I don't know. That's just my take on why we're not including this. And hopefully, this money will come to the district in revenue to help us next year, so that we don't have to put this, so that we don't have to have this amount of an increase in the future.
Anybody else?
So I was by the building that is opening in July. The curtains are up, the drapes are up, the furniture's in. Everything is ready to go. It may not open in July. You're saying things could happen, but it is going to open. And if we wanted to give a smaller percentage to it than what I'm saying, which is I'm assuming it opens by August, that would make sense. But to disregard it totally is to be deceptive in what it is we're doing. A budget is an estimate of what you expect to happen during the time frame. And that's the reason that I'm offering this suggestion.
I'll just speak, number one, I don't, and again, like maybe this gets to opinion versus not, but I don't necessarily like the word deceptive. I would hope that no one up here on this board is trying to be deceptive to the public. If we are talking about personal knowledge and personal information and what we think is going to happen with Shenandoah, well, there's an important piece, and Brenda, I'm not going to discuss your evaluations there because that's left for the Board of Assessments to do. But there is one huge factor to your calculations. If we want to go off of some of your numbers, for the building that's coming on, which is the 125-unit building, right? There's 125.
That's the one in September.
So that building is going to come online. However, we have no idea how the Board of Assessment is going to handle the assessment of that property. And what I mean by that is they can come in and figure out if it goes online in September, okay, they can give a 100% assessment at that time. And then they'll take the percentage of the year that it was open, and you could get your amount. And I think that's, Brenda, how you approached it. However, there's a complete separate way of going about assessments. And the Board of Assessment could come in and do a 50% assessment, which, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe is the way that they've actually done it with the prior ones. So what that would mean is when the board, or when the building comes open in September, they only levy a 50% assessment at that time. And then periodically, as the units become occupied, which they use occupied because these units don't have actual deeds, they then increase the assessed value. So if you cut from 100% to a 50%, and then you do it for a portion of a year, we're not talking about the same size money. Am I going to say that this revenue is never going to come in here? No, because that would be deceptive. But in terms of trying to nail down a number which will have a substantial effect on this, I'm not comfortable doing that. It hasn't been done in the past, and unless we had Montgomery County providing much better guidance on this with an estimate, and maybe this is future reference that maybe we can reach out to them and get future reports on buildings that are coming online. But in terms of the variables that are attached to these properties, I am not comfortable including it personally. So I just wanted to touch base on the Shenandoah.
I will reiterate, I'm not comfortable with the notion of counting chickens before they're hatched. And should these properties come online and be fully occupied within the next year, that'll be a great thing for the 17-18 budget. It will make that process, I'm hoping, a whole lot less painful. But the reality is that they're not occupied right now, and I just don't, it comes down to, I guess, the amount of risk that you're willing to take, and it's not a risk that I would feel comfortable taking.
Yeah. I go on the record that I'm not being deceptive. I'm aware that there's a possibility that Shenandoah will have revenue coming in this year, and I'm not trying to pull anything on the taxpayers. I want to be on the record for that. I'm looking at it as from a more of a long-term perspective. We know the capital, Scott and I discussed this at a finance committee in complete professional discussion. So we just have a difference of opinion. My opinion is we have to look at this as more of a one-year pony. We have gotten ourselves into problems with this one-year budget view. We need to have a longer view of where we're faced. And we know we face roofs and somewhere between, take a number, 30 million and 50 million or 80 million or whatever that came on this property committee. So we're aware that there's a big obstacle in front of us, and we're worried about this short-term view. And that is not why I signed up to be on, or not signed up, ran to be on the school board, because we need to have more of a longer-term view. That short-term view is exactly the issue that happened last year that caused a lot of strife in the community about where we're headed. So I want to, independent of what is the right guidance on recognizing that revenue or not, my perspective is we need that revenue either way.
In a way, I understand what Brenda has talked about with the Shenandoah property, and it's kind of frustrating because you see these gigantic buildings being built, you see them finished, and it's like, we need the revenue. I mean, all school districts need revenue right now, and it's not available yet. Timing. I'll also go to my annual rant about approving this budget before the state approves theirs, and the legislature dragging their heels to do that, and then getting carte blanche whenever they want to do it, they can get it done. Yet we still have to approve ours by June 30th. I do not agree with that. I never will. I believe the school district should have the power to approve their budgets after the state budget. I've always said that, and I will continue to say that. However, it is what it is. I've also stated before that I will not approve any budget above the index, because that was the ceiling that I placed and what I think we could have capably handled. I still think we can. I think there's a combination of underestimating revenues. Also, our expenditures could be trimmed a little bit in certain areas. Be that as it may, this is where we've landed. And I just don't think we can continue to do that. As far as other points have been saying of, addressing our capital projects, we haven't even really sunk our teeth into that report yet. We know a couple things that we're going to have to deal with very shortly within the next 5 years. But that draft report has got to be digested, and we really have to pull things out and prioritize. Last thing is I'm requesting from the president that we do a roll call vote on the budget, please. Thank you.
Jim, do you have any comments?
No, I had enough to say over the process.
Okay, thanks. All right. So this is the item number C, the final budget adoption. Let's do it as a roll call vote. Andrew? Brenda?
Michael, yes.
Scott Dorn, no.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Jim?
No.
And I vote yes. So it passes by a motion of 5-4. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. It always adds, it's always good to add to the discussion. I'm trying to keep up with our disjoint agenda here. So we're now moving on to item G, the homestead and farmstead exclusion resolution. So may I have a motion to approve the 2016-2017, the taxes, depositories, insurance carriers, and resolution 16-001, homestead and farmstead exclusion as presented? Second. Okay, any comment? Okay, no comment in the room. Jim, do you have any comment on that?
No,
Okay. We already know Jim's vote? Appreciate it. All those in favor? Are those opposed? Okay, that passes by 9-0. I think we're back on schedule now. So we're moving on to item number 11, curriculum and programs. Dr. Katona.
Thank you. As I brought forward last week, there are 4 curriculum documents for your approval, all from Arcola, 7th and 8th grade, 2 for family and consumer science, and 2 for technical education. And these are all part of the process of getting all of our curriculum board approved.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the Arcola curriculum as presented? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Nobody against? 9-0. Moving on to item number 12, policy. Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the agenda this evening, but not for approval, are 5 policies up for first reading. But on the agenda for your approval are several policies for second reading and your approval this evening. The mission vision, resource materials, assignment in district, federal fiscal compliance, travel reimbursement under federal programs, food services, and conflict of interest for your approval.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the second reading policies as presented? Second. Any comments, discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Against, no one. Passes by a vote of 9-0. Let's move on to item number 13, Dr. Zerbe, gifts and donations.
There are 2 items under gifts and donations. An accept a gift of $2,500 from St. Andrew's Evangelical Church for the backpack program at Methacton High School. Accept a Dash and Dot robot pack from Arrowhead Home and School Association for the Arrowhead Elementary School. The value of the gift is $279.99. Also under item 13 is trips. Approve the trip for the Methacton High School cheerleaders to the NCA cheerleading camp in Frederick, Maryland, August 18th, no cost to the district.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the gifts and donations of the trip? Second. Any discussion or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes by 9-0. All right. Item number 14, dates for the board members' calendars. On July 17th, we'll have the policy meeting continued, and then June 28th, we'll have a board meeting with final budget, June 28th, final budget adoption, which is tonight. July 19th, the board work session. 26th, the regular board meeting. 16th, the board work session, and the 23rd, the board meeting.
Mr. President, I would just like to make mention that the policy committee is also seeking 2 additional dates. We realize that there may be some conflicts with the dates that were set, and between my administrative assistant, Donna Coons, and our chairperson for the policy committee, we're working on those dates, but there's likely to be 2 more dates this summer for policy.
Okay, thank you. In addition to the already scheduled meetings?
That's accurate.
Okay. All right, let's move on to old business. Just a little background on the goals. I produced 2 drafts based off of looking at various documents and tried to take them to a level which, in looking back at it, realized that the goals that we're focused on, while we're important, were really goals more for the administration and other people in the school district to act on, and really weren't appropriate for the school board because we weren't taking any action on them. We weren't in control of those goals. We have to support them. So the revision that's in front of you is a higher level, and with the idea that it's more a high-level goals that we want to stay focused on throughout the year in terms of supporting the different areas. Originally, I had 4 where I pulled out education as the number 1 goal, which I think is very important for us all. But in discussions with Dr. Zerbe, recognized that the overall strategic plan, a big portion of that is very detailed about the education. So I pulled back on that goal because it's all part of the broader strategic plan that we need to support. So that's kind of where we got to the point of these goals. And Dr. Zerbe came up with the idea, and I think it's a good idea that, you know, with the goals, if we approve these are something that we'll put on top of all of our agendas going forward to keep us on point in terms of the direction, but also so the community understands what the school board's focusing on. So that's a little history lesson on where we got today. So may I have a motion to approve the goals? Second? Any discussion?
Let's just say your goals out loud. People that won't go on the internet to look at it. Can you read them publicly?
Yeah, well, we can read them right now. That's fine. Andrea, you want to?
Give you a break, Chris. It's been a long night with all the changes for you. The goals for the 2016-17 school year, if we're about to vote on, are 1, provide leadership, direction, and resources that support the goals set forth in the 2016 to 2022 strategic plan. 2, exhibit transparent communications within the board and with the public while establishing standards for clear and consistent communication of fiscal matters of the district. And 3, engage the community in ways that encourages positive interaction and the development of public trust through open dialogue and community input.
Thank you. Also, I'd like to thank Dr. Zerbe and his administration team for giving us some input in the development of these goals. Appreciate it. Any other comments or anything from the board?
I just have one small thing. Just in looking over this, I know I had emailed you, Chris, and said that I did have some thoughts on this. I think in looking at it, the strategic plan, yes, it does encompass a lot of our educational goals. I think I would just caution or just would want us to be cognizant of the fact that we don't want to just limit ourselves to things that are set forth in the strategic plan. I think it's important for us to also provide leadership, direction, and resources that support innovation and any goals that may, opportunities that may come up throughout the year, so that we're not just pigeonholed into what's in the strategic plan.
Our focus and our role is going to be fluid throughout any academic year, and we'll certainly prioritize and address things as they come up.
If I could just chime in, that's a very good suggestion. Sequentially or process-wise, what I would recommend is if there's things that are to be innovative and done by the district, we first, because the strategic plan is a flexible document, we should add those things to the strategic plan on an annual basis or whenever they arise, and then that pretty much takes care of where we're at. That's what I would recommend.
Any other discussion? Brenda?
Just wanted to comment, I always think of goals as something that stretches you and asks you to do something with a target out there, not what you're normally expecting to do. And to me, these 3 goals are what the board should be doing, and it doesn't really give us anything to stretch for. I don't have any problems with any of the goals themselves, but I would like to see a stretch.
Well, we can also certainly revisit the goals throughout the year as well. I think to me, this is a starting point, and if we, feel it's important or relevant to update them throughout the year, I don't see why we'd have an issue with that as well. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor? Jim? Okay. Any opposed? All right, thank you.
What did he say? Did he say no?
Oh, did you say yes or no? Jim?
I said no.
Okay.
All right, and so the record should reflect it's an 8-1 vote?
So it's an 8-1 vote with
Mr. Phillips.
Mr. Phillips, the single vote no. Okay, thank you. Any new business? All right, let's turn it over to courtesy of the floor. Are you coming down to speak, President?
I am. Okay. Somebody else.
Well, you're on your way down, so.
No. Go ahead. No, okay.
I've put you on the spot. You're first.
Preston Lutweiler, Audubon. Two quick points sort of following up from prior meetings. One of them, I heard some discussion this evening, of substantial discussion about the capital work that needs to be done on the facilities. And I think John Andrews suggested at a previous meeting that a presentation be made to the board in public or to the property committee, but publicized so that the public could see, where the facilities manager be asked to present and review the AEM draft report and provide his input on prioritization and timing of the things as he sees it. He should be the person most familiar with the facilities, and it would be good, I think, for the board and the public to get his input on the prioritization and the timing of the items in this budget to inform your longer term, Paul, your longer range budgetary thinking. And whether you're talking about bond issues or whether you're talking about funding these out of the general fund in the future. So that's one issue. The second issue is the issue of the SROs, which now are being reduced in the budget starting in January, and the bullying presentations that were made a month ago. And Dr. Zerbe, I talked to you at the end of the work session about how that transition out of the SRO program and the response to the parents and the students and the parents of students who had made presentations about bullying would be addressed. And you mentioned that there would be a committee formed and a process to develop a replacement for the SRO program. And I would just urge you to include some of the parents, the students, at least one board member, somebody from the administration, somebody from the teachers, and maybe somebody from Lower Providence and Worcester in those discussions, so that you are sure that in this transition out of the SRO program or into a new version of the SRO program, that you really take this opportunity to address those issues that were brought to you a month ago. Thank you.
Anybody else?
John Andrews, Lower Providence. In examining the document that Methacton files with the state, as other school districts also do it, in the matter of delinquent taxes, I think for this budget, the document indicates that something around 96.5% of the taxes get collected. So there's an adjustment such that the taxpayers who do pay end up paying an extra about $2.5 million, and then elsewhere in the budget there's a line item for delinquent taxes received. In other words, where someone can't pay the taxes, eventually the school district collects some or all of that. And that delinquent taxes item is something like $1.6 million. So there's $900,000 the difference in those two figures, the $900,000 that doesn't show up in the budget. And I guess I'd like a little explanation as to what happens to that $900,000. Is it when there's a foreclosure that the property is sold without taxes being due, where there might be 3 years' worth of unpaid taxes, or some other explanation?
Well, the differential between the two is a combination of multiple things. First off, our tax collection rate is higher than the 96% that you referenced. We have a taxpayer who's paying in protest. We have to remove those monies from our real estate tax collection and put that in an escrow account until resolution of that particular property is done. Second item, a differential between the collection rate and the amount of delinquent taxes is reflective of there is a certain percentage of taxpayers even going delinquent that will not pay in that current year. While we do have a decent amount of collection that will reflect property owners that go delinquent as of December 31 over to the county, some of those property owners continue not to pay or set up payment arrangements where they would pay in installments or some other agreed-to method where monies would not be recouped within that current fiscal year. So just to make full disclosure on how that whole process works, it's not one singular issue that's impacting it. It's actually a multitude of issues that impact the differential that you reference.
And with regard to foreclosure sales, does the district collect all the taxes or not? You know, as a common practice.
It depends. Taxes there's a hierarchy of what is collected off of a property that's foreclosed on, goes to sale or share sale, depending upon the extent of that. Taxes that are owed are the highest priority items once property does sell, so those get remitted first. Generally speaking, taxes are paid based on what is owed on that property. That would go, as I say, under a foreclosure, sheriff sale, bank, whatever. But there are occasions where there isn't enough funds to cover the amounts owed. But generally speaking, we would recoup a significant portion, if not all, of taxes owed on a property, with some exceptions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Bickelman, Audubon. I just have a concern about the $1 million that is coming back to the district from the healthcare consortium. The healthcare consortium takes in premiums from the district. It takes 12% of the premiums from employees and puts it in the healthcare consortium, and then it pays out claims. And the money that's left over, the difference between premiums paid and claims, creates a surplus. And there's been a surplus over the 3 years now, over $2.2 million, something like that. So there's $2.2 million sitting in off the books fund balance out here with the consortium. The district approved to have $1 million come back into the district. I think you need to recognize that $1 million as revenue, as refund of prior year's expenditures. Okay, that needs to go on the revenue side of the books as refund of prior year's expenditures, because that's what it is. I don't think, and you should pay the 12th month of insurance expenditures, medical insurance expenditures, so that you don't distort those benefits on the expenditure side of the books. So, and also based on the actuaries and the conservative methods that they probably use in this healthcare consortium, I think, and the catastrophic insurance, I think you're going to have a surplus every year. So it's almost like you could have refunds of prior year's expenditures, an estimate, kind of like the estimate that you should have put in for Shenandoah. I think over the years you'll see that, and you should request the report every year. the results of operations of that consortium to see what that surplus is. That's just my thoughts on that. I think Ms. Aubrey Larseny's mentioned about the principals, the board not being part of the process of hiring these principals. I think it's a good idea because the principals are the educational leaders of every building, and I think their selection should be, run by the board. I don't know if the board was in on that interview process or not, but I think that's a good idea. And then I notice we go through these annual approvals of bank depositories and treasurers and everything like that. Can you tell me the solicitor's contract? I didn't see that in May or June. When is that up for approval? The solicitor's contract?
My contract, I serve at the pleasure of the board. They can.
You don't have an annual contract?
I do not have an annual contract. I have a letter that was sent over when I became solicitor to the board.
I thought I saw something get approved last year as far as the hourly rate and things like that.
It may very well be. There has been no change in the hourly rate.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Candy Alaville, I know the agenda says that we can comment on board action items before you discuss them, but I think it's a little odd that we comment on items you're going to vote on when we have no idea what the discussion is going to be. You had a lengthy discussion about Shannondale. All the board members got to ask questions, discuss, but the public didn't get to ask any questions. I know Shannondale is an issue in the school district. We also have I assume we're still in the middle of a lawsuit with Shannondale that we haven't heard about in a long time. But the public should be able to ask questions after the board does. I know Lower Providence Township, when they do each item, they go the item, the board discusses it, asks their questions, then they ask if there's any comments from the audience. Regardless of the revenue or not, Shannondale is going to be built. People will move in, and I understand you want to plan ahead, but this economy doesn't allow us to make any long-range plans anymore. We don't know what's happening with this economy from one day to the other. This weekend was a perfect example. Another country affected our economy. A lot of people that had stock, it affected them. But I think when you're discussing issues like this that directly affects the taxpayers, because whatever revenue, I have to say I agree with Mrs. Hackett. That money should go towards whatever you get, lessening the impact on the taxpayers. And I'm just curious, if you do get a substantial amount of revenue, what is it going to be used for? What are you going to put it towards? We don't know that. Are we going to be told, or is this just something that's going to be put in to the general fund and handed out? My other comment is, I noticed one of your goals was transparency. And I have asked a number of times when it was decided that the board no longer votes to approve lawsuit settlements. This has been going on in its school district. The board voted to approve any settlement for a lawsuit that was agreed upon. In December, there was a payout for a lawsuit of $44,000. It was never discussed at a board meeting. It was never voted on. That's not being transparent. You're paying money, taxpayer money, to settle a lawsuit for whatever reason. A lot of the lawsuits, I very well understand, they're confidential. Because they are concerning students. But the money that's being paid out is not confidential. That's taxpayers' money. The board needs to get back on track, and before any lawsuit is settled, it needs to be approved by the majority of the board. And I think in the issue of transparency, you need to do that. Because right now, it looks like everything's being done in the back room. That doesn't look good. And that's my money along with everyone else in the school district. And we would like to know the board agrees with this decision before you spend the money. So I would think really long and hard about that when the next lawsuit comes up. And I won't have to read the payout in the list of bills and not be discussed here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diana Kernop, co-president of the Methacton Education Association. I would like to just comment back about the money in the consortium. I do believe that when the district started looking at the money, it was over $2 million, and that when they took the money, it was under $2 million. I think it was closer to 1.8 million. That money is fluid money. And Stuart and I sit on the finance committee, and every month we get to see exactly where Methacton stands and where the other district stands. We have been rather fortunate that there has been an accumulation of money, but we are also looking at bills that can be paid out that are still due between 12 and 18 months after the occurrence of the incident or the treatment of the person. Looking at that money as an extra bank account could become very dangerous. I think that there's a lot of conservatism by members of the consortium in trying to keep the cost as close to the real cost as so that all this money doesn't end up there. But when you're self-funded, you can have a good month, you can have a bad month, you can have a good year, you can have a bad year. Overall, we have been fortunate that our years have been positive. Agreed? So right now, we're lucky. But you've already said you could have a year where we really had something catastrophic, where you would have to find other monies to put in it. So I would not look at that. Certainly, that information is available to all of you from the trustees. It's not a closed kind of thing, but I wouldn't look at it as another bank account. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is Barbara Samini. I'm from Lower Providence. I have a question on a flyer that came from Lower Providence on new development. I count 160-some homes. 150 are in Arrowhead area. We're talking about closing schools. We went to Connecticut to get a study done because we didn't want to go to the county because it would take too long. Maybe we should have gone to Lower Providence. We're talking, I already saw the ground broke on 12 of these homes on Landis Road that are within less than a half a mile of Arrowhead. There were 9 homes built below Arrowhead within the past year. We're talking 139 townhouses, Superior Tube, within 2 or 3 miles of Arrowhead. We're talking about closing schools, $32,000, wasn't it? To get a study done in Connecticut, all we had to do was go to Lower Providence. I appreciate all the work you do. I mean, sometimes the answer's closer to home. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? All right. Well, I think we're setting a record for shortest board meeting. I'm closing out courtesy of the floor. Okay, we're doing the adjournment. All right. So may I have a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor? Aye. And Jim, thank you for calling in on your vacation. I greatly appreciate it. Especially. All right. We'll talk to you later. Thank you, everybody.